around the nation. UID Nation, Jeff Walder here. Welcome to the show. It's Monday. It's a brand new week, brand new disaster for the President of the United States. Of course, and brand new disasters all across the country and the world, which is what we always tend to talk about. If you're looking for good news, this is not the place for you. I don't know anywhere where there is good news. Nonetheless. Okay, so we're going to have some fun. And then, of course, like I said, go into quite a bit of disaster, as usual. First, we got some Trump stories from around the weekend. Some fun. Like I said, we've got more booing. This time, what should have been a very friendly crowd. Strange. We've got video on that. Then we also have Trump's tax returns. Will he actually have to give them over to New York, to New York prosecutors? Well, we'll see. We will see. Then we've got border wall nonsense, including some contradictory statements here, and a basically border wall fail. Then we're going to switch gears. We're going to go to the Democratic primary. Get a couple of stories on Buttigieg that are going to make your blood boil. So, Buttigieg, fun. A lot of it on healthcare as well. Oh, yeah, and Donald Trump blames the California wildfires on not raking the forests. Yeah. Okay. All right. Fun times. So, we got a great show for you guys today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Also, hopefully everybody had a fantastic weekend. A little bit of like just randomness, right? So now you guys may have remembered that I had talked about my wife not like being able to go back to school. I had a big Twitter thing about that. We actually did get kind of lucky and found a way for her to do so. But she now has, of course, had to take out some private loans and is like in a certification program. So that's great, except for the private loans part. More debt, that sucks. However, she is at least back in classes in a program, a medical assistant program. And the thing that the thing that I'm kind of trying to get around to is the fact that it leaves us with literally no time. And so now the stuff that she used to do around the house, because we kind of split things 50-50 around here, now I'm left pretty much doing almost everything because she has no time between working part-time and going to school. And so we've got like no time. We're like super tired around here. But at least I was able to kind of do a little bit of relaxation this weekend and jump into a new game. And that game, of course, I may have mentioned it before, not on here, Outer Worlds. And so I don't know if you've tried that out or if you're like on the fence. I don't know how many of you are gamers, but that game is so far incredible. So it's made by the people who did Fallout New Vegas. I don't know if you guys have played that, but that was also an incredible game. One of the best in the Fallout series. It's actually what Fallout 76 should have been. It was really good. And so now Outer Worlds, also really good. So, again, those of you who are gamers, who are maybe on the fence, get it because it's a lot of fun. So I'm really enjoying it. Maybe I'll do a stream. I know I always say that, but maybe I'll do a stream where I just go through and I'll show you, my character and stuff. So anyway, all right. That said, it was nice to actually be able to sit down and have some time to do that in between, like raking the lawn and doing like 12 billion loads of laundry and getting, taking care of the cats and all this stuff. By the way, cats are doing great. The kitten, especially, he's doing real good. So I know some of you have been asking about an update to him and how he's doing. He's doing fantastic. So he's a very good cat. All right. Anyway, I know there's somebody in here talking about PUBG, and Surprisingly, I have not tried that, but I've been very interested in looking into doing that. So, um, sounds like a lot of fun. All right. Anyway, it's just having to find the time, guys. All right. Moving on, let's get to some politics and some fun. All right. Boom. All right. So that was just a little snippet of Donald Trump receiving a disastrous welcome on Saturday night as he attended a UFC championship event in New York. Now, President Trump, by the way, he just stopped being a resident of New York and decided to move his official address to Florida. So, Florida, that's your mess now. Congratulations. I'm pretty sure they'll adjust because then again, they are the home of Florida Man. I'm sure he will have Florida Man over for dinner quite a bit. All right. Anyway, so now, look, you can hear some jeers, and you could also hear some cheers as well, as the president had arrived at Madison Square Garden for UFC 244. However, of course, as you heard, I showed you the video of the World Series Game 5, I believe, involving the Nationals. You had a lot more boos actually there. Although, to be fair, generally, baseball, like, they always boo politicians. Like, even, what was it? Even some of the more popular politicians usually get booed at baseball games. To be fair, right? Well, now what's striking about this is that here you have this response, and I'll show you more. There's more context in this video. I guess a longer version, which shows more boos and a little bit of cheers and etc. But this is supposed to be a friendly audience. Now I'm going to show you that video, and then I'll kind of break that down. Take a look. All right, so from where that person is sitting, you can hear a lot of boos, but again, that's relative to where the person is sitting. I'm sure there are other places where there is some cheers for the president, right? And again, I'm being incredibly fair because I don't want to misrepresent, uh, especially considering how this is supposed to be a very Trump-friendly crowd, right? So now, what was also noted in the reports is that there was a small anti-Trump protest that happened outside the arena. Again, I'm not exactly shocked, right? So now, this again, this is surprising. This is the UFC. This place is not exactly full of bleeding heart liberals, despite the fact that it is in New York. And look, here you've got the UFC owner Dana White. Now, Dana White is pro-Trump, and it's not just because of the usual reasons of I like low taxes, I'm a conservative, whatever, I'm greedy, and I don't want to give any more money to the government. Uh, of course, some of that's probably true. But no, it's also because President Trump had actually done Dana White a solid and the UFC itself. In fact, he was one of the first to go and promote the UFC. Trump was among those who supported the UFC in its earliest days, hosting events when the sport was shunned by other venues for being too violent. So now, again, that makes sense. So here we have President Trump actually doing something positive for a business, helping another business, which is I don't normally report on because it doesn't normally happen. But regardless, here's a quote here from Mr. White. He said this, quote, "If you had asked me 10 years ago, I'd tell you the sport's going to do this and do that. But like baseball games for George W. Bush or like the NBA for Barack Obama, no, the UFC has a president that attended one of the events. It's like one of the big deals. It's like we made it." All right, hey, fair enough. That's cool. Now, he also added, I would never say anything negative about Donald Trump because he was there when other people weren't. So you can kind of get White's perspective on this. And I look, that's super understandable, right? That said, it appears that some of the fans disagreed with that. So now, a little bit of reaction here, just from social media. Ian Bremmer, who is a political scientist who founded the Eurasia Group, he was pretty surprised about this, and he said, "Honestly, surprised to see Trump booed at UFC. This should be his crowd, his type of people. But again, unlike the World Series, this time I'm actually really surprised at this and how unpopular he is, at least according to this crowd. Outside of Trump rallies, it appears that a lot of people not exactly happy with him." There's another Twitter user, Keating Thomas, who said this, quote, "Trump got booed at a UFC match? That's like if Bernie Sanders got booed at a vegan bakery in Brooklyn." Just to show how pro-Trump the UFC normally is. Or, heck, what's next? Him getting booed at WWE? That would be, look, that would be crazy. All right, but who knows? It could happen. So now, kind of embarrassing, right? When you get booed at a place that's supposed to be filled with allies, friendly faces. So what do you do? What do you do if you're President Trump? You deny it happened. Now, Trump had retweeted different footage of his entrance to UFC 244, which said his arrival had a positive reaction. And again, I'm going to say that it was actually mixed, more of a mixed reaction, right? Now, that video was filmed too close to the speakers, so it was very difficult whether to ascertain whether it was boos or cheers. It could have been either, but you couldn't hear it over the sound of AC/DC. Which, hey, I don't mind hearing that. I like that song. But it's sort of the classic, let's drown out the crowd just in case. And again, those cheers also drowned out. Now, Eric Trump also tweeted to say that the crowd was chanting Donald Trump, USA, USA Today. There wasn't any video that accompanied that. So I'm gonna have to cast doubt on the veracity of that claim. Just saying. Now, there are also signs allegedly reading remove Trump and impeach Trump. So I don't know about that because I didn't see any video of that either. So let's be fair, right? But look, I think it's overall kind of embarrassing when you think about it. Not necessarily the boos, because again, every president gets booed, especially if you go to a baseball game or there are people out there that don't like particular presidents. That's fair. But I think what's more embarrassing is the attempt to cover it up. And that's the thing, right? Literally going and gaslighting the American people on social media to say, "Oh no, they weren't booing, they were cheering, they were saying boo-earns, boo." No, they weren't saying boo-earns. They're actually booing you. Maybe you should go and you should own that and say, "Oh, there's some people don't like me. They don't like what I'm doing for America. Well, that sucks for them because I'm gonna MAGA," or something crazy like that. Go out and own it, man. Own the fact. But the problem is with Trump, and I've noticed this, and I'm sure you have too, is that he's genuinely shocked when he realizes that there are people out there that don't like him. I know, it's crazy. That's like me reading YouTube comments and being like, "Oh my God," making Pikachu face, right? Saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe that there are people on the internet that disagree with me, that don't like me. How dare they?" No, but honestly, he doesn't understand that. And it's because he surrounds himself with people who suck up to him. Because he's allegedly rich, because he has his name on buildings, and all that. So he just doesn't understand that there are people out there that literally do not like him at all. And it's really, really kind of sad. Sad, baby. Okay. Anyway. Look at me being trying to be incredibly fair to Donald Trump. But anyway. All right. Let's move on to the next story, where I'm going to not be so fair. No, okay. All right. Actually, let's, okay. We'll talk about Trump's tax return. So we have a little bit of breaking news on the issue of Donald Trump's tax returns. So now this is this news comes from the Washington Post, and it states that a federal appeals court has ruled that Trump must turn over his tax returns to New York prosecutors. However, that remains to be seen, as I'm going to get to later in the story. Uh, so now it's reported that Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance Jr. has been pursuing the returns as part of an investigation into the Trump Organization and its role into buying the silence of two women who claimed to have had affairs with Donald Trump. So now the Trump Organization thing that's very, very important. So just keep that in mind, that it's not Donald Trump himself, but the organization. So now those two women, of course, Stormy Daniels or Stephanie Clifford and Karen McDougal, they made these claims. And so this relates to the National Enquirer and payments as well. Now, back in August of 2016, AMI, that's American Media, which owns the National Enquirer, had acquired the rights to Miss McDougal's story about Mr. Trump. And basically, what they did is that they bought that story for about $150,000. Also, they promised to use its magazines to promote her career as a fitness specialist. That's Karen McDougal. She's an ex-Playboy model, right? So they made that deal with her. So now recently, she just got out of that deal and now is able to speak freely about it. So now the National Enquirer, they bought the story and then they didn't run it. They basically engaged in a practice called catch and kill. They would buy the rights to the story and then they would bury it. Okay, all right. So now Stormy Daniels, Stephanie Clifford, like I said, her story actually never got bought by AMI or the National Enquirer, even though there were talks about it. Instead, you had Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's former personal lawyer and now current resident of prison, basically paying her off with his own money right before the 2016 election. Now, Cohen said at first that he was not directed by President Trump. Instead, he was just giving of his own money. And then Donald Trump happened to reimburse him later. Right, of course. Now, the problem with that is that, look, this would be illegal, is potentially illegal, because it could count as a campaign contribution. If it happened right before the election, which it did, that would mean that they were, again, sort of looking forward and trying to prevent this story from coming out that could affect his electoral chances. So when you look at it from that framing, from that perspective, it would appear to be a campaign contribution. And so here's the government of New York, specifically New York prosecutors, saying, well, we got to make sure that this is not a campaign contribution, or see if it is a campaign contribution, because again, that would run afoul of federal law. Okay, so now, very complicated situation, right? So again, that's why they're looking for the tax returns to see what role the organization had in it as well. And so they're basically following the money. So now Trump's defense is, and get this, that the president cannot be held liable of any crime while he's president. He has unlimited immunity. He is above the law, according to the Justice Department, so don't even try. Just don't even try. Okay, so now that went to appeals, right? So that's what they were appealing, because there was already a decision to have him hand over at least 8 years of tax returns to Trump Organization and Trump himself. So the argument against that from the appeals is that, again, Trump is above the law. So you can't get his tax returns. Well, the judge, the three-judge panel said that was ridiculous. In fact, back in October, a federal judge dismissed that as extraordinary. And let's see, this is a quote from Victor Marrero. He said he could not endorse such a categorical and limitless assertion of presidential immunity. So now we go to this panel, right, that just made this decision, and they actually had a different reasoning than Judge Marrero. The appeals court said that the president's accounting firm, not Mr. Trump himself, was subpoenaed for the documents, so it did not matter whether presidents have immunity or not. So they can get the tax records from the accounting firm. Well, I mean, we're looking at the accounting, we're looking at the business, and so we're not looking at President Trump uh, specifically, even though it's his tax returns and the business we are looking to get. Now that's interesting. So let me go to the statement here from the court. They said we emphasize again the narrowness of the issue before us. This appeal does not require us to consider whether the president is immune from indictment and prosecution while in office, nor to consider whether the president may lawfully be ordered to produce documents for use in a state criminal proceeding. So what they're doing, and this is interesting, is they're actually trying to sidestep that defense. They declined to take a position on whether the president himself has immunity, but instead going after the businesses. Now, is this going to be effective? I can't necessarily say. I can't say for sure, right? Donald Trump, of course, he's already going to fight it, and there's already plans to take this to the Supreme Court. So now, I don't know. Look, I'm going to speculate here and say that he's doing this because he thinks, well, I got Gorsuch on the Supreme Court, I have Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court, so we have a conservative majority, so maybe they will rule in my favor so that I don't have to present these tax returns. But Jay Sekulow, his lawyer, Trump's lawyer, says other than the Supreme Court, we're pretty much running out of options to try to delay and to stop these returns from being revealed, from being handed over. And it kind of makes you wonder what's on the returns. Now, there's two different schools of thought, right? For one, they basically show Donald Trump's alleged criminality, right? And that's, I think, is an assumption a lot of people make, and we don't know for sure. The other one, and I kind of subscribe to this a little bit more, but I think I'm more of a mix, is that it shows that President Donald Trump is not as rich as he claims. Remember, this guy built his entire image, his entire brand on being super, super wealthy. We've seen from other tax leaks that he's not exactly as wealthy or as good of a businessman as he claims. And so if it comes out that he's not nearly as wealthy, even if he didn't do anything criminal, by the way, which I think is very unlikely, but even if it did come out, to give people the benefit of the doubt, the MAGA guys, Trump supporters, so he didn't do anything wrong. Why does he still not want it out? Because he's not rich. Because he's a terrible businessman, which undercut his entire reason for being in office. I don't know. That seems like it to me. Like I said, a mix of both of those. But again, speculation because I haven't looked at those tax returns. Neither is really anybody else. So we'll have to see if this goes to the court and what the court will decide. But I know it's going to probably take a long time to make its way through the court if they even decide to take it up in the first place. But then again, if they don't, then this lower court ruling would probably stand. And if that's the case, well, there's nowhere else to go. New York's going to get these tax returns. So we'll see. All right. I'm going to take a quick break here. We have the border wall as well as Pete Buttigieg. And of course, California wildfires. Um, you're gonna love what Trump blames that on. All right, we'll take a break. We'll be right back. Please like and share the stream, and we'll come back. We'll do patrons, thank patrons as well as channel members. So sign up for that, and we'll see you in a couple minutes around the nation.
Mike Pence.
Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, TOT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right. So let's see. Got a couple. Well, we got a super chat here, as well as a new member. So new member Tammy Stitt. So thank you for signing up. Platypi says, I played the whole Crash Bandicoot 3 in one sitting. Dedication. That's all I gotta say. Dedication. Love it. Okay. So that said, let's go to some patrons. Patreon.com/TYT Nation here. I want to thank Vicky Van Etten, Vincent Massey, and Wendy Girardin. So thank you. Patreon.com/TYT Nation. That's how you can sign up to support independent progressive media. We don't have big funders. We have you guys. We don't have George Soros. We don't have the Koch brothers. We don't have any of that. So we just rely on you guys. So thank you. And then we have some new channel members, like I said. Well, maybe not new, but we've got William Murch, the Searoth, Blue November, and Sarge Tech. So thank you to those people who support us on the channel membership. All right, guys. Let's move forward. Let's have a little bit of fun. Okay, here. All right. Apparently, President Trump's big, beautiful border wall is not so impenetrable after all. So now, at a campaign rally in Mississippi, Trump had remarked that it was impossible to cut through the border wall because of how it was designed. So now the border wall, of course, right now consists of small sections of bollard fencing. Bollards are long steel rods filled with concrete encased steel rebar. So he says, well, it's impossible to cut through that, right? In fact, let me show you the video. Take a look.
What do you want? Which one? So I did all three. Because it's a different form of cutting. You can cut through steel, but you can't through the concrete, and then you can't through the hardened rebar. We got it all. And we also need see-through, sir.
You need see-through, but hey, look, we pretty much got it all, right? I mean, that's exactly what he said. So now, survey says false. The Washington Post just reported on Saturday that border officials have revealed that smugglers have been cutting through the multi-billion-dollar wall using $100 cordless reciprocating power saws with special blades in order to cut through the bollards within minutes. That multi-billion dollars, money well spent. The irony here, again, is pointing out how the wall can be defeated by something that you could buy at Harbor Freight. HuffPost explains that the bollards are only attached to the top and the bottom. So once they're cut at the base, the rods can be easily shoved aside, and you can gain entry right through the wall. Well, that's not really effective if you're trying to keep people out. So now, when he was asked by reporters Sunday about his reaction to the news of the barrier being breached, he had this to say, and it's going to be a little bit difficult to hear because this is another episode of Chopper Talk.
I haven't heard that. We haven't heard powerful wall, but no matter how powerful, you can cut through anything.
No matter how powerful, you can still cut through anything. So that would be the opposite of a powerful wall, right? In any case, he did add later, it's very easily fixed. You could just put the chunk back in. Again, would seem to be the opposite of powerful if it could be beaten with less than $100 in equipment that you can get at your local Home Depot. Just saying. Unless, and here's the angle that I don't see a lot of people talking about, unless it's there to stop poor people from Central America who, don't come in through smugglers. These poor people generally don't have anywhere near $100, but the smugglers do, The drug cartels obviously do. And there's a reason. That's because we keep feeding the drug war that A, continues to enrich the cartels, and B, helps create the very violence that's forcing people out of their homes and into the arms of the very smugglers that just beat your crappy wall with what amounts to them as essentially pocket change. What a colossal waste of money on our part. Again, this is our money going to the wall that is being defeated very, very easily. Now, if you want to fix this problem, well, here's a couple simple steps: end the drug war. You want to go further, you can end American involvement in Central America. You could maybe stop overthrowing leftist governments in Central and South America, or stop installing dictators, stop empowering the cartels, and stop literally destabilizing South and Central America. There are ways that you can do this. And if we did, we could probably put a stop to this problem, to most of the illegal migration, as well as doing something about climate change as well. That would be another way. If we do something about climate change, we can stop mass migration. But no, let's blow billions of dollars on a stupid, worthless wall that some rando can beat with a power saw. Less than $100. Congratulations. These people in power are really stupid. They are so stupid it hurts. And not only are they stupid, they're also incredibly racist. Why? It's because they believe in stereotypes. They don't realize that these people know how to get around a wall, or over it, or around it, or above it, just like any thinking person in America could imagine a way to get over a wall. And yet the entire MAGA movement has somehow forgotten that you can fly over walls, that you can go around them, that you can go under them, or in this case, through them. Very, very cheaply. Somehow they seem to have forgotten. I don't know how. I don't know. Nobody could have seen that happen. Nobody could have known. Except for all the people who knew. Who knew? And then, of course, like I said, he goes to, well, of course it's not going to work. You can just cut right through it. So then we sit there and you know, we're going to have to start replacing it, right? So now, in spending billions of dollars on the wall, which he's taking from the military, now we could expect, if he ever finishes this thing, to spend billions of dollars more to maintain and continuously replace portions of the wall for no goddamn reason, because they keep getting in. What's the point? No, this is another great example of the incompetence and stupidity of Donald Trump. Jesus. All right. There's more. Okay. If you thought the dumb was just getting started, nope. There's more. There's always more stupid to go around. It's really amazing. All right. Now, California is currently on fire. There are wildfires all around the region. And during this, President Trump has again threatened to withhold government federal aid from California in the midst of these wildfires. So now he claims the state that is currently on fire has apparently not done enough to prevent forest fires by not raking their forests. Okay, look, he didn't say that. To be fair, he didn't quite say that. But let me get to the real quotes here. He did say that Governor Gavin Newsom of California has done a terrible job of managing the forests and has not listened to Donald Trump's demand that he clean the forest floors. So let me give you the quotes here. He said, and this is from Twitter, "The governor of California, Gavin Newsom, has done a terrible job of forest management. I told him from the first day we met that he must clean his forest floors, regardless of what his bosses, the environmentalists, demand of him." How do you rake the forest floors? I don't know. That's what I think of. He also said, "Must also do burns and cut fire stoppers every year as the fires rage in California burns. It is the same thing And then he comes to the federal government for money sign, 3 money signs, help. No more. Get your act together, governor. You don't see close to the level of burn in other states, but our teams are working well together in putting these massive and many fires out. I mean, California, you are absolutely terrible, horrible, but our teams are working great together, by the way. Tremendous. It hurts. It hurts. Literally reading these words, it kills brain cells. This is like drinking, but no euphoric drunk feeling. It's hangover. That's you read this and you get a hangover. That's what it feels like. I'm just saying. Okay, more. He said, great firefighters. Okay, fair enough. Also, open up the ridiculously closed water lanes coming down from the north. Don't pour it out into the Pacific Ocean. It should be done immediately. California desperately needs water, and you can have it now. Very stable genius. Very. So here's the thing, right? So we know the president doesn't believe in climate change. Now, the reason that's important is because climate change has made fire season longer and drier. It's made the climate of California hotter and drier. And so fire season, which they normally have anyway, actually lasts longer. And so is more intense. And so there's more chances to spark these gigantic wildfires, right? So that's bad. Now, you combine the dry air, the longer, drier season, of course, with wind, and, of course, you've got high winds. You also have lightning strikes. And in other cases, or I should say in many cases, you have PG&E's disastrous infrastructure. So what they've done is that they haven't put a lot of their lines underground, right? Instead, they have it above ground, and they haven't exactly been using their money to maintain that infrastructure. And so you have these power lines that will fall over, fall down, get entangled with trees, etc. And guess what? That will end up starting fires, which immediately, of course, get out of control. It's sort of like what you really have here is corporate malfeasance from investor-owned PG&E, investor-owned corporations that decide that they would rather focus on their bottom line than actually updating their infrastructure so they don't cause forest fires, which then, of course, later on they get sued for anyway. I know, right? I don't get it. I don't get it. But no, Trump thinks, no. Climate change is a hoax. All you got to do to stop the wildfires is clean the forest. You got to rake the forest. Moron of morons. Not a smart person. And to illustrate that point further, Trump doesn't know that it's not California that manages a majority of California's forests. It's actually the job of the federal government. 57% of the state's 33 million acres of forest are controlled by the federal government, which means Donald Trump, or the Department of Interior. Something that Donald Trump can actually do something about, because he's the president of the United States. Oops. So now, we have a response here from Gavin Newsom, and it's a spectacularly spicy tweet, and I do enjoy it. He told the president, quote, "You don't believe in climate change, you are excused from this conversation." As if he's telling a child, you can't sit at the big kids table because obviously you're not a big kid. You're not very smart. Go sit at the little table. Which I think is fun. And as much as I enjoy that, though, Newsom has ignored the problems with PG&E. And so let's be fair about that. Their refusal to spend money on new infrastructure is the problem, and yet Newsom is sending them money to bail them out. What are you doing, Gavin? What are you doing? No. I'm actually with Ro Khanna, right? So Ro Khanna, he's a progressive, and he says it's time for the state government to come in and take over for PG&E. Right now, there are rolling blackouts. They're literally intentionally shutting off the power because they can't keep the power on anymore. This is a private investor-owned corporation, and they can't keep the power on. What happened to socialism being bad? What happened to capitalism being much more efficient? Apparently not in this case. Not in this case whatsoever. No, you come in and you make PG&E a public utility. That then they can actually fix the real problems. Invest in that infrastructure and make it so that at least their equipment no longer starts these wildfires. It's a much, much better solution than to tell Californians to get out their rakes and start raking the forest. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next story here. Switching gears from Trump now to the Democratic primary. Former South Bend mayor, hold on. I actually did do that right, but former South Bend, Indiana mayor Pete Buttigieg believes that the Democratic primary will end up being a race between him and Elizabeth Warren. Take a look.
I think this is getting to be a two-way. It's early to say it. I'm not saying it is a two-way, but I think.
But you see that. You see it's coming into focus, you and Warren.
Yeah, and certainly a world where we're getting somewhere is that world where it's coming down to the two of us. Obviously, there's a lot of candidates and a lot of things can happen, but I think that as that happens, the contrasts become clear. Look, the contrasts are real. They're substantive, respectful policy contrasts, but they're real.
All right, so that's Buttigieg saying that, hey, look, it's just going to be pretty much down to me and Warren, right? So ridiculous for a couple of reasons, right? And I'm going to lay those out. So for one, Pete Buttigieg says, well, it's going to be between me and Warren because nobody else essentially it matters. We have the policy discussions. Wait, what about Bernie Sanders? Bernie Sanders has incredibly detailed policy positions. Look, even Andrew Yang has his own policy positions, which, look, some of which I agree with, some of which I disagree with. And so why not talk about him? Why not talk about Joe Biden as well? Well, okay, there's some reasons for Joe. That to be fair, reasons we're not talking about Joe. But okay, look, you're forgetting everyone else is in the field. But let me give you one of the main reasons right now why Buttigieg is not going to be. It's not going to be a race between him and Elizabeth Warren. So one, you've got African American support, right? Turns out African Americans not a fan of Buttigieg. He's actually got about 3% support total from the African American community. Turns out it's really important for Democratic primary. So he's pulling in fourth overall, but a strong fourth in Iowa and New Hampshire. And in the other states with heavy African American polling, for example, South Carolina, he's barely on the board. Okay, he's not doing well. He actually does do well, however, with educated, white, affluent Americans. You know who else does really well with college-educated, affluent white Americans? It's Elizabeth Warren. So, look, they've got kind of that same demographic. And you know what? They also share that demographic with Kamala Harris, as well as Beto O'Rourke, which Beto O'Rourke, of course, has just left the race. So Kamala Harris's campaign kind of falling apart right now. In fact, she's just fired for all of her New Hampshire staff. So that's gone. And Beto O'Rourke, as you said, or as I said earlier, as you might have noticed, dropped out on Friday. He's done. Beto went back to Texas. So now a lot of that support from Kamala Harris failing went to Pete Buttigieg. So now what's interesting here is the second choice, right? It's what we call the second choice candidates, right? So now Elizabeth Warren is the second choice candidate for a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters. Okay. Now, the thing is that Buttigieg happens to be the second choice of a lot of current Warren supporters. So, well, that's very interesting, right? So I don't think it's going to be down to them. At this point, Buttigieg and Warren kind of share the same base. Interesting. So now, I think that when Biden falls, that base is going to end up being split between Buttigieg and Warren, and I believe that Warren will win out. For one, again, African American voters really, really important. Biden right now has the older African Americans on his side. They are not on the side of Mr. Buttigieg. He has about 0% support from older African Americans. And Warren, look, Warren doesn't have them right now because, again, they're for Biden, but she also hasn't alienated them. And now, the reason that a lot of these African American supporters are alienated right now is because the Buttigieg campaign is literally blaming the lack of African American support on homophobia. Oh, these black people are all anti-gay. They'll never elect a gay president. Really? Really? So, wait. I'm pretty sure that blanket labeling an entire voting block of people as homophobic is not going to win you voters from that group. But apparently, he's not interested in winning that group. He's interested in winning the white, affluent demographic. Again, the same as Elizabeth Warren. Okay. So now, like, here you have two people after the same demographic. That's why it's not going to come down to Buttigieg versus Warren, because here you have a progressive that has the young demographic, Bernie Sanders, like I said, and the working class. You ignore the working class, and you just focus on those white affluent people. Well, then, look, you're not going to do very well. Now, Elizabeth Warren, look, I think she's trying to get working class voters, but they are firmly with someone like Bernie Sanders. So now, here's the other thing, right? One of the other reasons that African Americans really are not feeling Buttigieg. You have the disaster from South Bend. Again, you've got all the scandal that was uncovered by TYT investigative reporters, Jonathan Larson. He went down to South Bend and he took a look, and it turns out that there was a black police chief officer that was fired under mysterious circumstances, right? This is after someone else was being incredibly racist. So go and read that reporting. It's excellent reporting. But there's that scandal in South Bend. And so it's so bad that people in South Bend, African American voters in South Bend, refuse to back his reelection. So that's a disaster. But see, here's the thing. So now, again, these are all the reasons that I don't think Buttigieg will go up against Warren. I think at some point, Buttigieg will likely fall off, and it will be Warren versus Sanders. But here's the thing. There is a danger to Buttigieg. Right now, he has become the darling of the media. He's the darling of the media, and he's also an incredibly unscrupulous politician. Now, why do I say this? Because he actually tried going kind of progressive at first, right? But it didn't work. It didn't work, and he recalculated. Now he's recalculated himself into a very conservative Democrat, almost the way that Beto O'Rourke did the same thing, right? So with Beto O'Rourke, it's a little bit different. Again, he started out running his campaign in a progressive way, and this was against Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is odious, to say the least, but he ran a progressive campaign, at least for part of it, against Ted Cruz. Then he started getting a little bit more conservative after he raised a lot of money. Why is that? Well, because once he got enough name recognition and enough buzz and excitement about him for running what I thought was an excellent grassroots campaign, he brought in the Obama people. They came in. His old team left, not part of the conversation anymore, not part of the campaign anymore, and it changed immediately to being the establishment. And of course, people not interested in the establishment, but they filled his head full of things like, oh, you're the next JFK. You're so presentable. People are going to love the centrist message. So Beto backed off of Medicare for all. Beto backed off on all of his progressive policies. Yes, he actually did pretty well with gun control, and got to give him credit for that. But at the same time, he lost his original way of campaigning, his mode of campaigning. He lost the fire, right? And he became the establishment. Now, Beto, I think that he made a huge mistake, but he's young, and he might be able to recover from this and get back to what made him special in the first place. It made him interesting in the first place. With Mayor Pete, there is no such thing. Mayor Pete immediately went back on Medicare for all. Why is that? Because he got a ton of money from the healthcare industry. And I'm going to get into that in another segment. But here's the thing. He doesn't believe in Medicare for all. He has recalculated his position on numerous different things. And the reason, of course, is that he's awash in healthcare industry cash. He's the new darling of establishment Democrats. And that's why you see fawning article after fawning article, push poll after push poll. You have pundits saying, oh, Buttigieg all the way. He's going to go all the way now. Well, they said that about Kamala. They said that against Beto O'Rourke as well, or about him. They even compared him to Barack Obama. How'd that work out? No. I tell you, though, here's the thing. Buttigieg, like I said, he's very dangerous because he does not have a core. He's actually incredibly calculating, far more than, I think, Beto and the others. And I think he will do anything he can and say whatever he can to overtake Sanders and Warren. But as far as him, I think, coming down to a race between him and Elizabeth Warren, I don't think it's going to happen. Okay. One more. And let's go to another one on Mayor Pete. All right. Hold on here. Let me check my videos here. All right. Mayor Pete Buttigieg has just made the case of why he doesn't actually believe in Medicare for all. Take a look.
You used to be for broader Medicare for all. You didn't qualify it in any way. Is your main argument against Medicare for all now that it can't get passed or that it won't work?
Look, I think it could very well be the long-run destination, but I think there's got to be some humility in our policy here. Let's put this out there and see if it's really the best plan for everybody. I think it will be the best plan, but I'm not willing to assume that it is the right plan for you out of Washington and order you to take it whether you want to or not. If it's the right plan, then everybody will move to it until it is the single payer. And if it's not the right plan for everybody, then we're going to be really glad we didn't kick some Americans off their private plans. I'm thinking, for example, about a lot of union members who fought and negotiated for good plans they have today. They don't want to have to abandon those plans because Washington tells them they must do that in 4 years or less. It doesn't make sense. And the most important thing is we can get to universal health care coverage without putting America through all of that, without kicking people off their private plans, without disagreements to the tune of $10 or $15 trillion over how much this is going to cost, which is equivalent to the entire GDP of the country. We have a plan that is affordable, that is paid for, and that allows you to choose instead of Washington choosing for you. And it's the boldest thing we will have done to American healthcare in a half century.
All right, so again, this is a reason why Buttigieg I think is pretty dangerous, because he's mastered the art of platitudes. So first, again, a lot of platitudes. Oh, it's choice, and we're going to give people a choice, and everything's going to be great. And yes, the ultimate goal is single payer, even though it's not his goal. I can almost assure you that, and I'm going to prove it later on. But here's the platitudes, and of course, the right-wing talking points, the Republican talking points of it's too expensive, and it kicks people off their insurance. So now, here's the problem with that. Flat out, 100% lie. Does it kick people off insurance? It actually gives them better insurance that isn't tied to their job. And not only that better insurance includes vision, dental, everything. It's all covered. It's all covered. Now, the second lie here is that Medicare for all who want it is Medicare for all. No, it's not. It's literally just a public option. It's not single payer. Now, the problem with this with the public option in our system is that it won't actually exist. Our system is different because what we have right now is a system that is bought off completely by private entities, right? For example, if you have a public option, and of course you continue to have private insurance, then you're going to have politicians who are paid off by private insurance, corrupt politicians that will do everything they can to basically undercut and sabotage the public option. First, like I said, they'll undercut it, right? The insurance companies will. That helps them siphon off the healthiest Americans into the private market. That leaves the sick and poor in the public system. And since the resources will be split, and you will not have cost savings proposals or measures in this, then you're going to have the cost of the public system rise exponentially and will create a death spiral. This is why you cannot preserve private insurance in America, in this country. Now, the other lies, of course, the cost. The Sanders plan, estimated by the most conservative studies, still saves about $2 trillion over the next 10 years. We are already on track. We already spent about $3.4 trillion now. We're on track to spend about $50 trillion on healthcare in 10 years by the year 2030. Disastrous. That's about $5 trillion a year. So now the math, not on Pete's side, as keeping private insurance, again, does nothing to keep costs down. You don't have cost saving measures like the reduction of administrative costs like you have in Medicare. It's about 2.3 percent administrative costs, while private insurance is somewhere around 12 to 16%. You would have more savings by cutting down administration when it comes to Medicare for all. One point also brought up by the establishment, brought up by Mayor Pete, is, of course, union negotiated healthcare, right? So one of the main talking points now is you don't want to take the healthcare away from union members, right? They fought for that. But again, you don't mention how the insurance that they're losing, or I should say the insurance that they're gaining, is better than what they lost. You actually have better insurance, and it's also not tied to your job. And according to the provisions of some of these Medicare for all bills, you have the wages. I'm sorry, the what would have been used for health insurance, that would go back into wages. So you would actually get extra money in your paycheck, or you're supposed to, right? So now, union workers, of course, they're not going to miss out. They're actually going to benefit even more. But again, what's missing in this conversation when we talk about unions, and why a lot of unions don't like Medicare for all, and I'm not saying the union members, but I'm saying more the union bosses, is that some of these unions, they also sell health insurance. They sell health insurance plans. So not all of them, but enough of them. And as a union guy myself, that deeply upsets me because I'm very, very pro-union, right? No, in reality, Medicare for all would be fantastic for the workers. And as the GM strike pointed out, even if you have really great negotiated health insurance benefits, if you go on strike, or if you lose your job, or if they downsize and move to Mexico, well, then you basically just lost your health insurance. I mean, during the strike that just happened, GM literally pulled all of its health care from striking workers. Is that the kind of power that you want to preserve? Or would you like to go to a Medicare for all system where even if you lose your job, or if you're striking for better wages, that you'll still have health care? Mayor Pete, unfortunately, wants to keep this system. And it's because he's received tens of thousands of dollars from private health insurance companies and executives. Real Sludge reports that as of mid-2019, Buttigieg was second only to Donald Trump in overall campaign cash from donors in the health sector. And among Democrats, he was second to former Vice President Joe Biden in terms of donations from the pharmaceutical and health insurance companies. He is awash in donor money. And so, of course, he goes back as soon as he starts getting the money and no longer supports Medicare for all. And now even openly attacks it while claiming that single payer is eventually going to be the goal. No. That's what Nancy Pelosi has been saying for years, possibly decades. I know at some point she said she had a Medicare for All sign in her basement. Well, that's probably where she buried it, along with the idea of actually doing Medicare for All. She's not going to do it. Mayor Pete's not going to do it. He's not actually interested because he's never going to go against the donors that fund his campaign. And that's it. And as far as humility, I don't want to put humility back in policy. I want to put the humanity back into policy. And I hope we all do. And the only way to do that, at least when it comes to healthcare, is guaranteeing healthcare to every man, woman, and child through Medicare for All. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you like what you see. Or even if you hate it and you want to continue to troll me, that's fine. Hey, you know what? That's just extra views, man. Watch an ad or two. Support the corporations that hate me and watch an ad. Trust me, it'll work out great. All right, guys. Thank you. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys later.
Mike Pounds.
Please clap.